This content is produced by Pass the CSLB, an independent audio-first study companion for busy California B general candidates. I build these lessons from official CSLB study guide topics and reputable, source-backed California materials so you can study on the go. This is exam prep reinforcement, not legal, professional, engineering, or job-specific advice. Exam content is set by PSI and the CSLB and may change, so always verify current requirements against official CSLB materials. No exam outcome is guaranteed. Now let's get into it. The central decision in roofing fall protection is not one universal height. I first identify the kind of roofing operation. Then I look at the roof slope, the vertical fall distance, and any equipment that changes the rule. If I skip that order and reach for one remembered number, I can apply the wrong standard with complete confidence. The number most likely to cause trouble is 15 feet. That older residential threshold may still be lodged in the memory of an experienced contractor. For residential roofing, it is no longer the current trigger. The amendment to California Title 8, Section 1731, became operative on July 1st, 2025. For current residential roofing decisions, I want you to set that old 15-foot habit aside. Based on the published CSLB study outline, roofing and personnel safety both fall within testable areas. The useful field skill is not reciting a number by itself. It is matching the current number to the correct roof and condition. I begin by deciding whether Section 1731 applies. It covers residential type roofing work on single-family homes, townhouses, duplexes, and the other residential structures named by the rule. Roofing and re-roofing are included. Roof removal, loading roofing materials, installing the roofing, related insulation, sheet metal integral to the roofing system, and vapor barrier work are included. Construction of the roof deck is not included in this roofing section. That boundary matters during sequencing. Imagine a crew framing and decking a house on one day, then loading and installing roofing material on the next. The physical location may look the same, but the activity has changed. I do not label every task performed on top of a house as residential roofing. I identify the operation that the employee is actually performing and then apply the section written for that operation. Once I know the residential roofing rule applies, I measure fall height vertically from the employee's walking or working surface to the ground or level below. I do not measure from the ridge. I do not measure from the top of a parapet. I do not add the parapet height to the roof height. That last mistake can sound reasonable until I picture the actual fall path. A parapet may be relevant as a protective feature when it meets an applicable requirement, but it does not change the vertical distance from the surface under the worker's feet to the lower level. The regulation expressly excludes parapet height from this measurement. My memory connection is simple. Measure the fall, not the wall. Suppose the walking surface is exactly 6 feet above the level below, and the roof is within the lower residential slope range. The threshold has been reached because the wording is 6 feet or more. If the surface is just under 6 feet, this particular height trigger has not been reached, although another rule, the approved plan, the system instructions, or a site condition may still require protection. I never turn a threshold from one section into permission to ignore every other obligation. The slope switch is 7 and 12. The boundary belongs to the lower category. A residential roof from 0 and 12 up to and including 7 and 12 requires protection when the fall distance is 6 feet or more above the grade or level below. I put the two residential categories side by side because one word changes the result. Up to and including 7 and 12 means a roof at exactly 7 and 12 still uses the 6-foot trigger. Greater than 7 and 12 means the worker must be protected regardless of height. Consider a hypothetical re-roof on a single-story house. The walking surface is 8 feet above grade and the roof is 6 and 12. The fall distance has reached at least 6 feet, so protection is required. Now keep the house low, but change the roof to 8 and 12. The height no longer provides an exception under this residential roofing rule. Because the slope is greater than 7 and 12, protection is required regardless of height. This is the central learning loop. First, classify the work as residential roofing. Second, place the pitch on the correct side of 7 and 12. Third, measure vertically to the lower level without adding a parapet. A roof through 7 and 12 uses 6 feet or more. A roof steeper than 7 and 12 uses regardless of height. The permitted methods in Section 1731 include personal fall protection systems, scaffolding, safety nets, and guardrails. A fall protection plan with safety monitors and controlled access zones is listed only when the employer demonstrates that conventional methods are infeasible. I will return to that burden later because a written plan is not a convenience switch. I also avoid saying that a steep roof has a 0-foot fall. That phrase can be a useful shorthand, but the actual rule is clearer. Protection is required regardless of height. The fall distance still exists and still matters to system design. It simply does not postpone the protection requirement on a residential roof steeper than 7 and 12. Non-residential roofing is a separate decision path. Section 1730 expressly says it does not apply to residential-type roofing activities, defined in Section 1731. For the baseline comparison here, I am focusing on single-unit monolithic roof coverings, because that is the condition tied to the rule I am teaching. For a single-unit monolithic roof covering with a slope from 0 in 12 through 4 in 12, employees must be protected from falls from roofs more than 20 feet high by 1, or a combination of the methods allowed by the section. Notice the wording: residential low and moderate slopes use 6 feet or more. This specified non-residential condition uses more than 20 feet. Exactly 20 feet and more than 20 feet are not the same phrase. I do not round a measurement, and I do not borrow the residential 6-foot trigger merely because a warehouse roof looks easy to walk. I classify first, then measure under the applicable section. The non-residential section also addresses single-unit monolithic roofs steeper than 4 and 12 and multiple-unit roof coverings. Those categories have their own wording and methods. I am not collapsing every commercial roof into one rule. The safe supervision habit is to verify the roof covering type, each slope, height, and task before selecting the provision. Imagine a contractor looking at a flat warehouse roof 18 feet above grade. Under the ordinary low-slope, single-unit monolithic baseline just described, the more than 20-foot trigger has not been crossed. That answer can change immediately when the work method changes. When a felt-laying machine or other equipment is pulled by an operator who walks backward, the fall protection provision applies regardless of roof height. The worker's elevation did not change. The equipment condition changed the rule. That is why a site inspection cannot stop with roof pitch and eave height. I also ask what the crew is operating and how the operator moves. A foreman who checked the roof at the start of the shift must reconsider the setup when different equipment comes onto the roof. The warning line details are worth separating carefully. On the low-slope, single-unit monolithic roof covered by this subsection, warning lines are installed 34 to 45 inches above the roof. Highly visible flags hang at approximately 6-foot intervals. The line has a minimum tensile strength of 500 pounds. Under the ordinary rule, warning lines and headers are placed no closer than 5 feet from the roof edge. The equipment condition adds a more specific rule at edges perpendicular, or nearly perpendicular, to the operator's direction of travel. Headers must be no closer than 10 feet, while warning lines must be no closer than 5 feet. When conditions prohibit headers, the warning lines must be no closer than 10 feet from those perpendicular edges. I do not flatten that into the statement that every warning line always moves to 10 feet. That shortcut loses the distinction in the regulation. I remember the sequence this way. Normal setback, 5 feet. With the specified equipment at a perpendicular edge, header, 10 feet, and warning line, 5 feet. If the header cannot be used, the warning line takes the 10-foot position. Warning lines are not decorative rope. Height, visibility, strength, placement, access paths, and supervision all matter under the section. For this lesson, the trigger decision comes first, but the protection method still has to satisfy its own detailed requirements. A second common mix-up is treating every harness setup as fall arrest. The harness does not settle the classification. I look at what the complete system allows the worker to do. Fall restraint is rigged so the employee can move only as far as the side of the working level or work area. In plain language, the system prevents the worker from reaching beyond the edge. The anchorage point for fall restraint must support 4 times the intended load. Fall arrest addresses a different event. The system is designed to stop a worker after a fall begins. An anchorage used for personal fall arrest equipment must be independent of an anchorage supporting or suspending a platform and must support at least 5,000 pounds per attached employee. The alternative is a complete engineered system that maintains a safety factor of at least 2 and is designed, installed, and used under the supervision of a qualified person. I put arrest and restraint side by side because the numbers follow the function. Arrest catches after a fall begins, so the direct anchorage rule is 5,000 pounds per attached employee unless the engineered alternative applies. Restraint prevents travel beyond the side of the work area, so its anchorage rule is 4 times the intended load. Suppose 2 employees attach their personal fall arrest equipment to one anchorage and the engineered alternative is not being used. 5,000 pounds per attached employee means the anchorage must support 10,000 pounds. I do not see one anchor and assume one 5,000 pound requirement. I count attached employees. Lanyards and vertical lifelines used in personal fall arrest systems have a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 pounds. That component value does not authorize a field-built tie-off chosen by appearance. The anchorage, connectors, lifelines, harness, clearance, rigging, inspection, and manufacturer recommendations must work as a complete approved system. The short memory connection is arrest, catches, and restraint restricts. That does not replace the rule, but it keeps the 2 anchorage requirements attached to the correct system. Perimeter fall height is only one roof hazard. A roof can be below a perimeter trigger and still contain an opening that needs protection. Skylights deserve special attention because a translucent surface can look solid without being qualified as a protective cover. Under Title 8, Section 3212, every floor and roof opening must be guarded by a cover, a guardrail, or equivalent protection on all open sides. A cover must be designed by a qualified person and must safely support the greater of 400 pounds, or twice the weight of the employees, equipment, and materials that may be imposed on any 1 square foot of the cover at one time. The phrase greater of controls the calculation. Suppose the imposed weight on 1 square foot could be 350 pounds. Twice that load is 700 pounds. 700 is greater than 400, so the cover must support 700 pounds. If twice the imposed load were only 300 pounds, the 400-pound minimum would control. The cover must be secured against accidental removal or displacement. It must also carry the warning opening, "Do not remove," in legible letters at least 1 inch high. Chalk or keel markings do not satisfy the marking rule. I do not assume an existing skylight is fall protection, merely because it has glazing. When the skylight itself will serve as the cover, it must meet the applicable strength requirement, and the employer must obtain manufacturer documentation before work begins showing that the skylight will meet that requirement for the dates when work will occur nearby. Other listed protective methods include qualifying screens, guardrails, personal fall protection, covers, and skylight nets, subject to their own requirements. This connects the lesson back to classification. The perimeter question asks how far the worker could fall from the roof edge under the applicable roofing section. The opening question asks whether the worker could fall through the roof surface. One measurement does not answer both hazards. A fall protection plan is not a permission slip that an employer writes whenever conventional protection costs more or slows production. California Title 8, Section 1671.1 begins with a presumption that conventional fall protection is feasible and will not create a greater hazard. The employer bears the burden of showing that conventional protection is infeasible or creates a greater hazard. The plan must be prepared by a qualified person, developed specifically for the site, and kept current. Changes require approval by a qualified person. A copy with approved changes stays at the job site. Implementation is supervised by a competent person, and the plan documents who fills both roles. The plan must explain why guardrails, personal fall arrest systems, or safety nets are infeasible or would create a greater hazard. It must discuss other measures, identify each location where conventional methods cannot be used, control who enters those areas, and provide safety monitoring when no other alternative measure has been implemented. Imagine a contractor who dislikes roof anchors because installation takes time and later patching affects the schedule. That inconvenience by itself, does not establish infeasibility or a greater hazard. I would look for documented, site-specific facts that meet the rule, not a general preference for a monitor. This is also a supervision lesson. The employer carries the burden. A qualified person prepares the site-specific plan. A competent person supervises implementation. Those roles cannot be replaced by a vague statement that the crew has always worked this way. I want to leave you with one clean decision sequence. First, identify whether the activity is residential type roofing under Section 1731 or a non-residential roofing operation under Section 1730. Second, identify the roof covering category and slope. Third, measure vertically from the walking or working surface to the lower level and leave parapet height out. Fourth, check whether equipment or another condition changes the baseline. Fifth, verify that the selected protection method meets its own design, placement, strength, inspection, and supervision requirements. For residential roofing through 7 in 12, remember 6 feet or more. For residential roofing greater than 7 in 12, remember regardless of height. For the specified non-residential single-unit monolithic condition, remember more than 20 feet, but backward-pulled equipment makes the provision apply regardless of height. For anchorage, arrest is 5,000 pounds per attached employee unless the engineered alternative applies, while restraint is 4 times the intended load. For a roof opening cover, use the greater of 400 pounds or twice the imposed load. I made an audio practice quiz for this specific episode so you can test these roofing fall protection trigger heights and the field decisions that go with them. It is audio-based, the questions are read aloud, and you answer by tapping. I designed it for people studying while driving, working, or otherwise on the go. Go to the description below this video. You will see a link that says Pass the CSLB. Tap it. It will take you straight there. If you have any questions about anything I covered, comment below. I read those questions and I want to help you get the rules straight. Subscribe so you can stay on track through every episode until you get your license. I am rooting for you and I will keep guiding you one clear decision at a time.